All right, welcome everyone to the second part of our Jupiter and Virgo series. As Leroy said, tonight we're going to work our way through Jupiter and Virgo around the 12 houses. Before we do, first of all, a few housekeeping slides. You can study with us 3 different ways at EAN. You can listen to our free weekly audio podcasts. You can subscribe to one of the sections in the Astral Library, and you can roll in our multimedia course. Here's a slide on the Astral Library. You can see we have 3 different sections of materials. You can subscribe 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, or a monthly recurring that can be canceled at any time. This is eventually where most of our public webinars end up material-wise. Here's our multimedia course. We have 3 different segments, as you can see on the screen. And with segments 1 and 2, you can either get all of the physical materials, the binders, the DVDs, etc., or you can now get both segment 1 and segment 2 completely online that you can study from any internet-friendly device, and you could also do both. You can get segment 1 and segment 2 as materials and online if you'd like to get the whole works. More information, visit the multimedia course page on our website. And so again, here we are, Jupiter and Virgo part 2 through the 12 houses of the circle. Just briefly here, I'm going to put these slides on the screen. I'm not going to go through everything, but I thought I needed to include them just as some brief reminders for everybody if you're just going to start out and look at segment 2 by or part 2 by itself. Jupiter and Virgo, of course, is shifting from the pyramid reality complex to the inverted pyramid reality. Virgo is where we learn how to be of service to others, individually and collectively. Jupiter in Leo involved creativity. Jupiter in Virgo is now demanding fulfilling our roles with the universe in the broadest sense possible. This usually takes place through the work environment. There can be resistance to following through with things and paying attention to the details. Jupiter likes a big picture, and Virgo is all about the details. So there's just sort of a natural little conflict going on here when Jupiter's in Virgo. And it can lead us into having that crisis orientation towards life. Now, in natural law, the purpose of a crisis is to create change and growth, and yet there is a tendency to fall back from making the changes after the crisis blows away. And what Jupiter in Virgo is really going to help us do is understand where we have these crisis patterns in our life, and teach us how to breathe and understand the larger picture, why this is happening. It's also there for us to learn how to balance left brain, right brain. When we understand that larger picture, we know how to prioritize the details. The polarity, Pisces, is a potential for perfection. Virgo is so much aware of the lack of perfection, and yet its work is understanding and implementing the process to perfect. Anytime we have planets in Virgo Pisces, we start to deal with the patriarchal distortions that have come about in the last 2,000 years of the Piscean age, going all the way back 5, 6, 7, 8,000 years, in which we've had these distortions from natural law. And the Virgo Pisces archetype, polarity, will always have us dealing with guilt over our imperfections. And when we link it to atonement, we've got the masochist and the victim. When we link it to anger, we have the sadist or the victor. Both sides, victim, victor, sadomasochist, both sides of this polarity are distorted. In natural law, which is always found through nature, when we align ourselves with that, it gives us that ability to release a lot of the conditioned guilt that have come through these patriarchal distortions for many lifetimes. The collective consensus, however, is so caught up in sadomasochisms they can't even recognize it. And when we use these words patriarchal, matriarchal, we're not specifically talking gender. We're talking about these words in an archetypal way. Patriarchy, taking, hoarding, excluding. Matriarchy, giving, sharing, and including. In natural law, there's always a balance between patriarchal, matriarchal principles. From the health and wellness perspective, Jupiter in Virgo can bring us an expansion of wellness or the manifestation of the dis-eases. And one of the most common things that we can find through Jupiter in Virgo is a burnout because of the crises overload. We can have a stressed out nervous system. We can fry our nerves. There can be an inability to calm down. So in general, Jupiter in Virgo, if you find yourself in crisis mode, if you find yourself getting stressed out, you're going to want to breathe. You're going to want to exercise. All of the herbs, I'm a fan of herbology, although you can use homeopathy and flower essences and other things just as well. The nervine herbs that calm down the nervous system can be most helpful with Jupiter and Virgo. I'm most familiar with the ones that help you sleep. Hops, valerian root. There's also passion flower though, but passion flower is one of the herbs that will calm the mind and do it without putting you to sleep. So you can do a little more research on your own, and you may want to consider an herbal protocol if you find yourself, again, having the overreactions or abundance of stress or crises in your life. And Jupiter and Virgo affect the liver, breathing, nerves, limbs, immune system, motor skills, our ability to process food and process and assimilate life. Jupiter co-rules the prostate. We deal with the hands, the digestive system, the whole entire endocrine system as well. Just a few of the issues that might be emphasized with Jupiter and Virgo. So here we are, starting right off. And anybody has questions as we're going along, you're more than welcome to type them into the Q&A panel on your screen. And Leroy will answer, or he is welcome to interrupt me at any time. And I will do my best to answer any questions as well. And so, when we are looking at Jupiter and Virgo through the first house, by the way, the T-square is Jupiter and Virgo, Saturn in Sag, and Chiron, Neptune in Pisces. This is what's going to be most activated during Jupiter's annual visit through Virgo. As I did my little bullet points here, this is no way inclusive. It's just a few bullet points that I could put on a page. And so I concentrated more on the Jupiter house transit than I did the T-square, but I did put it in there so we can see what houses are being activated by this mutable T-square. So some of the distortions that we'll have with Jupiter Virgo through the first house is we can easily get overwhelmed with the process of life. First house is so action-orientated, instant gratification. They have to learn through action, and there can just be too many details. There's just too much to take care of, and first house just doesn't want to slow down and handle it. There can be excessive self-criticism, inner, outer criticism, because again, this is the first house of self. And this is where we initiate the rebirth of understanding ourselves. We can have avoidance activities. Nothing like racing through ruler Mars to that first house. We don't want to be bothered with those details in life. Then Jupiter is asking us to take a look at everything in our life and make sense of it, prioritize it, understand it, deal with it, process through it. And so we can be racing ahead here, and when we do, we'll have to come back and do it all over again. I think every single one of the 12 houses can deal with stressed out nervous system because we're dealing with Virgo. In the first house, when you bring in all the excitability of action, we can sometimes, again, if we're racing ahead, we can just be not paying attention to the body. And we can just burn ourselves out until eventually the actions of the first house just have to calm down. Worry extremes. We could find this going on, worrying about ourselves, worrying about our impact with others. That first house is self-identification. And we can have an over-ego complex, under-ego complex. Virgo could put us to that under-ego complex, and then we become very worried. How are they seeing me? Seventh house polarity. What do they think of me? Do they like me? And we can just, take that to the extreme. Jupiter is going to take any of the Virgo excesses to extreme. S&M sadomasochistic extremes in life can be going on here. The distortions of the first house is wanting to be the center of everybody else's world, and we could kind of bulldog our way through to be that center. There also can be issues with familial situations and partners due to this T-square that you see up there with the 4th and the 7th house as well. So what we are wanting to do as Jupiter moves through this first house in Virgo is to look at some of the childhood wounds, to look at our sense of ego and what is there that we need to make an effort to heal. Can we create a healthy sense of self and ego that is neither selfish nor selfless? Can we love ourselves? Can we learn how to be gentle with ourselves? And first house, gentle with our bodies. First house planetary transits, we can ignore our body. We want to go out there. We want to do things. We want to have fun. We think we can jump over that stream and land on that rock on the other side. And we don't recognize that all of our bodies have limitations. We're not as young as we used to be. We miss the rock. We slip. We fall down. We bruise. We hurt. And so Jupiter in Virgo is going to be needing to learn how to nurture the physical body and to treat that body temple with love, with nutrition, with breath work, with slowing down to be in that process of life that we all go through. And we definitely want to be working on self-improvements, initiating whatever it is that we need to do to become a better person, to treat ourselves better, to treat others better, to treat our family better, to just really honor the body. What do we need to start with? Jupiter and Virgo can have old souls paying attention to diet, exercise, and rest. That is naturally ruled by Virgo. And first house is going to be emphasized here. Again, that we are taking care of that body temple. And so you can just find quiet moments with this house transit. Sit down, breathe, and just inwardly ask, what are the highest and best actions I can take for myself? You can ask this question every day, multiple times a day. You can ask it whenever you feel yourself racing around, or when you feel overwhelmed with the demands coming at you from the relationships in your world. Can you find that time to just be by yourself, quiet down, breathe, and ask, what are the best ways for me to pay attention to myself, to heal my body, to take the next best step I can for myself, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Around the issue of guilt, you can say, show me any natural areas of guilt that I need to address. Show me areas of conditioned guilt that I need to objectify, break free from. Can I understand why I might have any guilt-induced actions? Can I figure out why, and can I make the effort to shift my actions? Again, these are just bullet points. Hopefully, my intent is to just start to jiggle your own Jupiter intuitive process on how you can be making the best of this transit. As we look at Jupiter and Virgo through the second house, there's Saturn in Sag in the fifth, and there is Neptune and Chiron in Pisces in the eighth as the T-square. Distortions here, we can become the worrywart around resources. There's not enough resources. I've got too many expenses. We just can start that mental analysis around all of our physical resources and just get caught up in the worry over them, the excess of them. You know, we can have too many resources that really bog us down with everything we've got to do to take care of our resources. You know, you might live in a space that is, you know, way beyond what you need, and it just requires all that extra effort to go through that. You can have, you know, unexpected expenses. You can have a variety of crises that will come around over resources, including if you're in relationship, perhaps partner losing their job. And that can be a source of crisis and worry. We can be stuck in self-repeating patterns around the whole self-worth issue. The second house is going to be survival mechanisms. It's going to be our values. And what we can do here, Jupiter and Virgo, we can stir up the patterns and just keep circling them around and around and around and around. And so if we're overinflated with self-worth, we'll get the humility lessons. If we're underinflated with self-worth, we're going to have to learn how to love self better, honor, value self. We can have defeatism here. Again, Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and so we can find ourselves mentally stuck in the second house, not just around self-worth issues, but whatever seems to be appearing in our life with this transit that we've got to handle. We can be stuck in our viewpoints. And with Jupiter, it's about expanding the understanding to make sense of the viewpoint and change it if we need to. And if Virgo's caught up in the whole worry, crisis, guilt thing, we can have procrastination. We can have the sadomasochistic distortions around sexuality in some way. We give to the partner who takes. Can we discern and discriminate the healthy boundaries and hold that? If the partner is not valuing us, is that relationship of enough value to stay in it or go forward? We have to really watch paralysis with life in all kinds of areas here. And there can be loneliness. We can be looking over there to that 8th house and 5th house and go, nobody will love me. I'm not valuable enough to be loved. You can see the distortions we need to work on there, self-love. And because Virgo in 2nd house is a double earth signature, we could feel stuck in work. We could have work crises going on. We could feel that it's just a drudgery in that physical world without any meaning or value to it, which is what Jupiter's transit wants to bring up for us. What do we value in ourself through work? Is it necessary to make any changes in the area of work? So you can see here, Jupiter Virgo through the 2nd house is trying to replace all of the less thans, not good enoughs with honoring, valuing self. If there's procrastination or laziness, we have to make the necessary efforts to create whatever resources we need or desire. If there's too many resources, we have to go through the simplification process. So we need to take any crises that show up and be proactive. We need to make the changes in work, in life, in relationships, with whatever's going on. We need to get off that 2nd house duff and make the effort. It's also important that we become realistic about relationships. When you're looking at Pisces over on the 8th house, Neptune there, Chiron there, are we sacrificing ourselves in relationships again? Are we holding healthy boundaries? Is that partner really interested in us, or is it our own fantasy projections going on here? Can we have our feet on the ground in regards to relationships, improving the relationship with self first, and then making relationship improvements with others however necessary? Looking for that whole honesty situation and pattern in our intimate relationships. And we need to look for deeper inner values here, and then create the world, our world, to reflect whatever those evolving values are. If we have any sense of guilt, let's just say over past lives of excess resources, then we can hold ourselves back from providing for our life however we need to. We can go to, the extremes of just resources substitute for relationships here. How do I discover the talents and resources to work in my highest and best ways that allows me to serve the world in some way? So the value systems are changing here. And again, we're always going to have to be careful of getting caught up in the mental whirlwinds and crises and worries of lack. And we have to replace that with deeper connections with Source, knowing that everything will be provided for us. Everything's just a lesson. And it's okay to change. It's okay to move. It's okay to evolve. And it's okay to do it in a peaceful, step-by-step manner. If we procrastinate, if we're into paralysis, we're going to create the 8th house confrontations, polarity points. And so, as Jupiter makes us intuitively aware of what needs to change, make the effort. Jupiter and Virgo transiting through the 3rd house. We're going to have Saturn Sag 6th. We're going to have Neptune Chiron Pisces in the 9th for the T-square. This is going to give us a double Mercury signature, 3rd house Gemini, Virgo. So here we're going to have to be careful with going overboard with worry. We can create the mental whirlwinds here, and we analyze it and analyze it and analyze it, and we just keep going round and round and round and round in circles. And Jupiter, again, is to get us to step back from this, apply that analytical skill with Jupiter and Virgo, but then know when to just step back from it and put all this information into a larger picture to prioritize. Definitely can be working with the fried nerves again here. If we fall into the worry, fall into the crisis, fall into the mental patterns, we'll just wear ourselves out. We can definitely have the inner-outer criticisms going on here. Our outer world is a reflection of the inner world. And so if we're going to be inwardly self-critical, that is the vibration to the universe. That is the vibration the universe will send back. So can you calm that mind? Can you breathe? Can you find the ways to have the positive self-talk for yourself? We could be dealing with the guilt issues here. This could be one of the things that we get going around and round with mentally. If there's natural guilt, we could get into an avoidance of atoning or making whatever efforts are necessary in our world. Or we could get stuck in all the conditioned guilt, and it's always my fault. I'm always the bad one. I can't ever do it right. To get out of that guilt, we have to go over to 9th house, Pisces, and really deepen intuition, deepen connection with Source, and again, find that ability to step back, see that larger picture. We're so caught up in the details of the 3rd house, we can't see the larger picture. What we'll have here is busybodiness and avoidance activities until we literally collapse inward upon ourselves, till we have the mental breakdown or the physical breakdown. We can reach that inability to make sense of anything. And then we just have to collapse in upon ourselves and listen to that still voice that will come through. If there are any health issues going on here, and they can easily deal with the nervous system, the motor skills, all of the things, the breath, lungs, these we can magnify it just stirring ourselves up too much, worrying about it. So again, it is so important with this transit that we discover tools, exercises that allow us to calm down the mind. Literally, physically exercising might be one of the best ways to do this. Just get out of our head once in a while and go exercise the body to produce the hormones that will allow us to calm down and process through all the information and make sense of it. As I said earlier, so important to replace any negative self-talk with the positive. In other words, we've really got to learn how to be gentle with ourselves here. It's okay to take a little bit of time to process through anything. If we're racing away from it, if we're spending too much time processing through it, take a look at how you're trying to process. Again, beating yourself up or reaching for a better feeling thought. Can we move into having deeper and more honest communications in our world, no matter who we are communicating with? Can you pay attention to any messaging from the body that, okay, I've got to handle this a little bit differently. My mouth is saying one thing and I'm having a bodily reaction. You feel sick in the pit of your stomach. You feel, a sense of defeat. You feel a sense of guilt. Can you just be real and deep with yourself? And then the same interaction, communication with others. What needs to happen here is we can easily have what Jeffrey Green would call switching. Left brain, right brain, left brain, right brain, left brain, right brain, left brain, right brain. And yet never taking time to integrate. And so what happens is the left brain must be calmed down through the breath, through exercise, just through reaching for a better feeling thought, through a conversation with somebody that you can trust to be honest with you. Can you calm down and open up to right brain, Jupiter? Can you trust your own intuition? That's what's going to allow you to handle the details going on, prioritize the details, allow you to just be able to calm down and relax in the body temple rather than just running all over the place. And this transit, house transit, is also one in which we are really working to be adaptable to any and all situations that life is bringing up for us. Can we go through the flow? The Gemini third house mantra is, my foundation is in movement itself. So we're meant to be moving, changing, adapting with this house transit. We just have to do it including the larger picture so that our movements have purpose, direction, make sense versus going all over the place. All right, I'm just breezing through and doing these in a bullet form fashion, and hopefully this is working for all of you. If you, as I move through the houses, if you see anything that I have not addressed, you are, welcome to bring it to my attention. I'd be happy to address it as best as I can. So Jupiter and Virgo transiting through the 4th house is going to bring up the T-square in the 7th and 10th. Saturn and Sag will be in that 7th house, more or less, and Neptune and Chiron in Pisces will be in the 10th. Some of the distortions we can have going on here is we can bring up literally in the body all kinds of digestive issues. If we don't have an ability to process everything that's going on in our life, in our home, in our familial situations, if we can't process through it or understand it from the larger Jupiterian picture, then it's going to easily be reflected in an inability to trust ourselves, trust our gut. It'll come through physically with, again, the whole digestive area being upset, being in discomfort. The other thing we could do here is we could mentally dissect our emotions to death. We could just crucify ourselves with analyzing our emotions. This one, that one, this one, that one. And again, if we know anything about our emotional body, how many different emotions do each of us have in a single day? And every time an emotion comes up, well, why do I feel this way? Well, what's going on? Well, blah, blah, blah. And we could just run ourselves emotionally ragged here. And we can go into the excess of worry, or we could go into just literally shutting down into almost a sense of catatonia. I'm so exhausted with feeling everything. I can't feel anything anymore. And so we need that Jupiter Virgo energy to be gentle with ourselves in this area. To just go, sometimes I just feel the way I feel, and I just have to honor the feeling. I don't have to find out why all the time. I can allow it to intuitively reveal itself. I don't have to have a reason or an excuse for feeling this way. This is how I feel. And as my emotions make themselves known to me, I will share with you. We can have a poor self-image here with this transit. Jupiter and Virgo can be looking at everything that's wrong with ourselves. And each time we come on to a new thing that's not quite right, not good enough, the emotions come through that just have us feeling worse and worse and worse. Again, anything Jupiter and Virgo, we can get circular with whatever. Excuse my burp. With whatever the distortion is. And sometimes it's just taking that breath. We can have a lot of victimization from our childhood. And as Jupiter transits Virgo, we can feel re-traumatized, re-victimized, or we can use the intuition of Jupiter to try and understand why our soul drew in these situations. Why did we draw in these experiences? Why did we draw in these particular parents and or children? There's something to learn here. There's something to learn from each other. So we can get out of some of the victimization and or judgment patterns and kind of breathe into, well, what is the lesson? What is there to teach me here? Can I move through this? Can I make the effort to heal? Can I make that effort to love myself emotionally as deeply as I can? That will then give me a center of gravity to work with healing in the relationship arena however best as possible. To work with healing whatever crises may come up from the work with the 10th house polarity. With our partners, the 7th house square. Again, Jupiter and Virgo is going to bring crises no matter where the house is. Here it's going to revolve around the emotions, the self-image, parents, children, squares to the 7th partners, and we're going to go overboard or collapse. That's that emotional animation and withdrawal that we have with Cancer, 4th house, ruler moon. So can we just be honoring of that ebb and flow rather than analyzing it, judging it? Why do I feel this way? What's presenting itself? What can I learn from this? And then we can work to, again, really be gentle with ourselves. We can look at the past. We can work to heal it. We can understand those emotional imprintings on deeper levels and work to be healing. We can love ourselves. We can parent ourselves. We can be honoring those emotions without having to justify them or dissect them. And as we're moving along, working, healing ourselves, if we're in situations where we have parents, maybe elderly parents we're taking care of, or maybe we have children, maybe young adult children we're taking care of, how do we best honor those relationships with them? How can we be helpful to them, holding those healthy emotional boundaries as we honor our own emotions? Jupiter in Virgo is the healer, and it's always going to expand the intuition in regard to how to heal, the ways to heal, the whys to heal. Can we do this in our own personal little world? Calming down those digestive issues is trusting the gut, trusting the instinct, trusting the emotional body, honoring and serving the emotional body. And again, as we learn to do that, we will help others do the same. Jupiter and Virgo transiting through the 5th house. We're going to have Saturn and Sag in the 8th. We're going to have Neptune and Chiron in Pisces in the 11th house with the T-square. Here we have to really be careful of a lack of self-love, of buying into there's never enough love to go around. Nobody's going to love me. We can be overly self-critical in regards to loving ourselves. We can be critical of any of our loved ones in our world. We're just going to start overanalyzing the whole area of love. And we have to be careful of falling into the lack side of Jupiter Virgo here. We also can have crises around the whole arena of creativity. You know, Virgo in the 5th house, we're dealing with the pyramid and the inverted pyramid. So we go back and forth and back and forth. And so we can go overboard, Jupiter, with drawing attention to ourself in order to be loved, looking for it in a gazillion ways outside of ourself when we need to be finding it inside with self. And if that's going to be where we're coming from, then we're going to buy into the lack of creativity. We're going to buy into that better than, less than. We can have trauma around the whole arena of work, Virgo. Again, Virgo, how do I serve another? How do I honor creativity in others? How do I serve others? How do I truly love others? So we can get caught up in all the distortions around that. We can have, guilt coming through from, past lives in which there, has been the love trauma dramas. We feigned victimization to control our partner. We were overly controlling of our partner. We can be so critical of our loved ones. We can have the whole arena of crises with children. If we're in a situation where we have children, we're raising them, or we have young adults, the children can feel that we were always critical of them. They were never good enough. Can we unconditionally love our children regardless of their own evolutionary karma and necessities? We can still hold the healthy boundaries. There is a need, as we're learning to serve another, to hold healthy boundaries and not go overboard in sacrificing. We could also have situations where we avoid work. We're just coming, I don't want to pay attention to that stuff. I just want to go off and play. Jupiter in the 5th house. And if we're avoiding responsibilities around the work arena, raising children with our loved ones, we're sooner or later going to bring something to a crisis to get it. So we've got to love ourselves and others through the imperfections. We have to self-love here, honor self here. We have to take a larger picture in regards to the whole arena of love and anyone we might be in relationship with. Honoring self naturally allows us to honor others. We need to make the creative initiations regardless of how unprepared we may think we are. This is the house of creativity. And with Virgo, you need to make the effort again and again and again as it's intuitively coming to you. To procrastinate until you have it just right means you'll never get anywhere creatively. You want to make the effort with creativity and work, and through the effort, allow an unfoldment of processing in how to do it in better and better ways. And of course, how well can we honor someone else? Again, how well can we honor our children? We have to move through the self-honesty issue here. Either we're going to have overabundance of ego in the 5th house, and Virgo needs to bring through the humiliation reality process, or we could hold ourselves back. We could be quite creative here, and for whatever reasons, conditioned guilt, natural guilt, we're held back. Conditioned guilt, we hold ourselves back. Can we be honest with ourselves and going, well, wait a minute, if I need to make amends, how? And then can I get on with life? Can we have a forgiveness with self and recognizing that it is just as important that we shine as well as anybody else. So can you balance the over-under ego issues and be honest with where you really are in that way? There's a lot of times the Virgo energy has a fear of success. And there can be many reasons for that. When axe always falls on the tallest tree, as Jeffrey Green would say, so maybe we were successful and we were punished for it. Maybe we were, just so overly egotistical around creativity and success that, it's not ours this time. It's really reflecting on where that is for us. And then Virgo, with the fear of success, step by step, making an effort, and not worry about where it's going to take us or how it's going to turn out, but just making the effort to create in the universe, however your intuition source is bringing it through for you. As we look at Jupiter and Virgo transiting through the 6th house, we have the T-square in the 9th and the 12th, Saturn's in Sag in the 9th, and we have Neptune in Pisces in the 12th. We have the signs in their natural houses here. So everything we've spoken about with Jupiter and Virgo is going to be alive and well with this house transit. Crises after crises after crises. Jupiter in Virgo and Jupiter transiting through the 6th house. There can be mental chaos, or we can go overboard with having to take care of the details more than necessary. I am Pluto 2 degrees Virgo, and Leroy would tell you that. He would tell you that, we rent our house out on HomeAway, and he will tell you that I go overboard in getting the house ready for the guests. And so whether we're into the chaos and the avoidance of the details, or we overdo the details, this is bringing up the whole guilt complex and self-worth complex. It's bringing up the, I had the word and it went right out. The guilt complex, the whole aloneness issue. Because one of the things we go through with Virgo's 6th house is being a busybody. Because when we actually slow down and quiet down, we recognize how alone we are or how much we might have that inner void. And so the Pisces polarity is really having us deepen the relationship with Source. And Saturn Sag 9th is, searching for truth in our life and aligning with that so we can just calm down and process through life with this house transit. Again, too caught up in the details, we can't step back and see the larger picture. Of course, the nervous system will be fried here. Breathe. Take care of the body temple again, Earth house. All of the guilt distortions around conditioned guilt, natural guilt, you need to quiet down and go inward. And where is my sense of guilt? Do I really feel that there's something I need to make amends for? How? Do I feel that I'm so conditioned with guilt I can't even have any objectivity around it? Then we have to learn to break free from that pattern, see that larger picture. Saturn Sag, have an honesty around it. So you can see how we can have the workaholic, or we have someone avoiding all the details. You can see where we can be very self-critical here. We can be critical of life. We can have all the Virgo issues going on. Anything that's happening health-wise could be magnified here due to the nervous stress, due to sometimes the lack of taking care of ourselves. So this transit is asking us to move into self-forgiveness, to take care of ourselves physically as well, to take care of ourselves mentally, to be gentle with ourselves, to have that larger picture so we can know when to say yes and when to say no. We can have the discrimination in our life. We need to have the healthy boundaries. We can run around and self-sacrifice to extremes here. There needs to be a simplification of life. Perhaps it's necessary for work boundaries. We need to make the spiritual effort here. Sometimes what will happen with Virgo's 6th house is it's got to be practical. And that Pisces polarity is too impractical, too mystical, just not real. And yet it is exactly what we need in order to calm ourselves down. There has to be a purpose and meaning in our life. Otherwise, we're just doing all the work with no understanding of why we're doing it. We're going around empty inside while we're physically busybodies. So we've got to have that spiritualization process going on, and Jupiter's going to bring the deeper understandings of why the chaos or the workaholism or the detail overload. And can you step back from that and prioritize it? And one of the things that we really want to do here is what Jeffrey Green in Eastern philosophies used to call karma yoga. In other words, what is the highest and best work for us to serve ourselves and to serve others on a karma dharma level, our karma yoga. Work is always going to be the buildup of talents and abilities that are natural for us. And for me, I'm a great bookkeeper, but my efforts are kind of wasted now in the bookkeeping arena. There's other abilities that I can do better, like being a teacher, helping people spiritually. And so can you discover what your karma yoga is here and make the effort to move into that? Can you organize the priorities and let some of the details go? Can you recognize your abilities to heal, both healing yourself and the ability to help others heal as well? This transit, it's quite possible that the karma yoga is to bring back the healer, the shaman, the herbologist, the masseuse, the Reiki, to just bring back the healing qualities, be they physically with the hands, or be they emotional, mental, spiritual abilities to heal. Breathe. Ask yourself, what's the priorities? What is the best way for me to serve myself and to serve others? What is my karma yoga? And what are the steps and efforts I need to make in those directions? I gotta take a drink here, everybody. I'm just rattling off, trying to be fair to all 12 houses. All right, big drink. See if I can get through a few more. Jupiter and Virgo transiting through the 7th house. This is going to give us Saturn and Sag in the 10th And Neptune and Chiron in Pisces in the first house for the T-square. Here, of course, we have to be careful of all of the relating crises that can go through. If we're in a relationship, our world can just seem to be crises after crises after crises with our partner. Inner criticism, outer criticism, back and forth, what's wrong with the relationship, what's wrong with that person, who's not doing this well enough, who's not doing that well enough. We can just really get into the Virgo cup half empty in the relationship arena and tear the relationship to pieces. There needs to be a certain amount of discernment here, but we can go overboard. We can be very controlling of the relationships through the sadomasochistic distortions. Either we're the victor sadist end of the things and we've got to have 200% control of the relationship in order to feel secure within it. We can selfishly be going for our needs over our partners. We can go for the masochistic victimization end and control through victimization. The partner has to sacrifice themselves for us all the time. There has to be an equality here. There has to be an equal giving and receiving in relationships here. And that's what Jupiter and Virgo is trying to make us aware of. What side of the equation are we on? And how do we bring about a balance? So you can see we can overgive, we can overtake. We can also feel very alone, even when we're in relationships. When we do that, that's when we're substituting the partner for a relationship with the divine inside. And so we have to fill ourselves up in a relationship with the divine. That's that Pisces on the first house. And when we do that, then we will feel full, loved, loving, loved, and lovable, regardless of our relationship situations, in one, not in one. We have to have an honoring of a relationship with ourself and the divine first, before it will reflect outside. And yes, again, we have to be very careful of just mentally crucifying and destroying relationships. How many of you have been in those public situations where you overhear two people and one person is just criticizing? I have a family member, a sibling, who is that way in relationship. And I always have a sympathy for her spouse. The spouse is a 7th house Pluto. He's so codependent, he puts up with it. Of course, he overindulges in substances, I think, as a way to escape it and check out. And so this transit will be making us aware when we do this type of thing in relationships. And can we, shut the fluff up if we can't say anything helpful or constructive or honest? How can we repicture that? Can we hear what the partner's saying to us? Perhaps we draw in a partner who is totally beating us up all the time. Is that relationship of value enough to stay in it? How are we working to change it? How are we working to self-improve? There can be all kinds of worry around relationships here. We can never really settle in and trust the relationship. So again, the need to trust ourselves, to then know when we have healthy relationship environment. Safe relationship environment. There is a need to really practice gentleness in relationships here. Loving someone through their imperfections. Those healthy boundaries, giving and receiving. Jupiter in Virgo is going to be intuiting that and discovering minute changes, major changes that need to take place in order to achieve healthy boundaries with others and healthy relating equality. We've got to practice discrimination here. We can have the over-criticism, but we can also have someone who perhaps could be so codependent, that they're always sacrificing themselves to the partner so they won't be alone. And they're going to end up alone, or they're going to feel alone because of the sacrifice. So we've got to have healthy discrimination in who to be with, who not to be with. Can we actually hear? 7th house, psychology of hearing. Can we hear what the partner, can we hear what the partner is saying to us without having reaction or jumping in and criticizing back? Jupiter, can we take a deep breath and really listen and take in the meaning of what's being said? Is it something useful to help us evolve and grow? Here there must be a larger purpose to relationships. Again, instead of the nitpicking all the time, why am I in relationship with this person? What's the deeper meanings and values around this relationship? What's the purpose of this relationship? Can I keep this in mind and prioritize the details? Can I see the divine in my partner? Can I work to create a mutual, giving, loving, gentleness, honoring with myself and others, both directions? Transiting Jupiter and Virgo through the 8th house. Here we are going to find Saturn and Sag in the 11th and Neptune and Chiron in Pisces in the 2nd house. We have to be very careful with all of the sadomasochistic sexual distortions here. We can have the outright sexual abuses. We can have the subtle manipulations, victimizations to get our needs met over someone else's needs. We can want to be criticizing and controlling of our partner. Our partner could be trying to do the same thing with us. Again, here we're going to have either covert or overt manipulations to control in order to feel secure. And when we do that, sooner or later, it's going to bring the crises that can become abandonment, betrayal, and we have to go over to that 2nd house and really find self-reliance. We can have crises around all of the resources. Here again, we can have a partner lose a job or have something happen where if we're in relationship, two people aren't bringing in income, and that in and of itself all of a sudden becomes the crises. We can go to extremes with resources here. Jupiter and Virgo transiting through that 8th house, we can go overboard with resources. And instead of a handful of purses or one purse, we got to have 20 purses, and then we wonder why we got the credit card debt. So watch where we go overboard with resources and put ourselves in a crisis, then it's going to bring up guilt around resources. Why do we have the guilt around resources? Have we abused them in the past? Or do we have those self-worth issues that we just have to self-sabotage around resources? There can be excuse making in relationships. This is true 7th house, 8th house as well. Not really being honest with the partner around some of the deepest emotional situations in the relationship. There can be guilt complexes around the desire nature. There can be natural guilt if we have been abusive or controlling of a partner in the past, in past lives. There can be conditioned guilt. And, here again, this one's going to get, this one could be kind of complex. Conditioned guilt. We could be conditioned into thinking that we don't have what it takes to do it on our own. And so we cop out on ourselves and become codependent in order to have the relationship. And that's going to create a sense of guilt around itself because we're not honoring ourselves and we're not being all we can be. So we're going to review the desire nature here. What do I value on deepest levels? And do my desires and my efforts, Virgo, match up with what I value? What do I value in a relationship with a partner if I'm in one? And does our relationship effort align with that? So Jupiter and Virgo through the 8th house is going to be teaching us how to truly honor our partner. To honor them for who they are rather than trying to control or manipulate and make them into something they're not. We're going to be looking for that emotional inner peace. The more emotionally insecure we are, the more Virgo's going to get into controlling the details. The more we are finding that inner self-reliance, inner peace, especially on emotional levels, the more we calm down, the more we can truly give and receive and commit to a partner. We have to learn how to value ourselves. We have to learn to value others with this transit. How do we serve others? How do we share whatever resources we have with another? Are we truly giving and sharing with another? Are we truly giving and sharing of our resources? Or are we hiding a secret bank account? Are we hiding resources in some way? Are we hoarding resources in some way? It brings to mind, I have a client who the female does not have a lot of resources. The male, through various situations, family, creativity, has a ton of resources. They've been in relationship now for 6, 7, 8 years and live together, and they don't equally share resources yet after that many years. And I'm not saying, multimillionaire, but, enough resources to be comfortable middle class. And so the male is building a new house and it's going in his name only. there is an extreme inequality there in regards to really sharing, honoring resources. If you only half commit to somebody, you can see how Jupiter and Virgo could just stir up all kinds of issues between them, all the betrayals, abandonment stuff. Can you be forgiving of yourself and others? Can you understand the partner's side of any issues, especially when you're in commitments with each other? Can you empower the partner? Can you be honoring, forgiving? Can you truly commit to the partner? Or is there always going to be some lack, some but, some Virgo cup half empty? Can you work to empower others in the work arena? Jupiter Virgo through the 8th house. If you've been making the efforts around work and resources and you've been coming through successfully, can you be sharing, giving, helping, empowering of others to do the same? This is some of the real deeper values of 8th house and Scorpio, is empowering others as much as self. And, this house transit is one where that requires the person to just be intensely honest with self. I mean, again, 8th house, eagle eye, deep psychological detective. With you blend that in with Jupiter, Virgo, and this can be someone who beats themselves up, beats up the partner, or they learn to be really honest and then make the effort to self-improve. Make the effort to empower self, empower others, be all they can be. Make the effort to find the common values and therefore common desires to go forth with. This house transit, you can have the worst of the worst, the best of the best. Transiting Jupiter in Virgo, moving through the 9th house. Here we're going to have the T-square with Saturn in Sagittarius in the 12th, and with Neptune and Chiron in Pisces moving through the 3rd house. Basically, this is going to be all of the archetypes we've been discussing here with Jupiter and Virgo. Just like Jupiter and Virgo transiting through the 6th, all the archetypes. Jupiter and Virgo transiting the 9th, all the archetypes. Because 6th house interchanges with Virgo and 9th house interchanges with Jupiter. We are going to have to be careful of religious, spiritual rigidity, judgments, criticisms, better than, less than. We're going to have to be careful of all the excuse makings and compensations that can go on here. There can be an avoidance of reality. Jupiter 9th house, I'm just going to move on. I'm just, I'll just fudge a little here, fudge a little there. We can believe our own lies. We can get all caught up in dishonesties and not recognize it or go through avoiding it. And if that's the case, then we're going to increasingly have more and more and more guilt complexes because we aren't being real with ourselves. We aren't being honest with ourselves. We aren't taking the time to understand the larger picture of what's going on. We just want it to be, nice and easy and Pollyanna. We just want to, I'll just move on. And then we wonder why we keep running into the same situations again and again and again. One of the other distortions that can come through here is, we can have all the avoidance and Pollyannisms, of glossing over things. We could also pull in that Virgo energy and just, this could be another one of those house signatures where we could crucify ourselves, where we could always be judging ourselves guilty in some way. Perhaps there's some natural guilt. Perhaps there could be a fair amount of conditioned guilt. And so we just self-sabotage. We beat ourselves up. We never get anywhere. It's turning the criticism inward. It's turning, everything on ourselves and just beating ourselves up. So we can go the avoidance realm. We can go the sabotage realm. And what we really need to do is open up to those larger pictures. Open up and ask for the truth. I want to know the deepest levels of truth about myself. I want to be real with myself. And then we need to search for that in our life as well. And then we work to be forgiving of ourselves, tolerant of ourselves, make peace with ourselves. And then we work that outwardly with others. We learn how to serve and help others. We learn to help others intuit their own truths. We learn to be forgiving and tolerant of others because perfection doesn't exist here. We learn to practice what we preach. We learn to recognize that relationship with source energy needs to be a foundation in our life. It's the most real relationship we can have. And when we have that one, then here again, the healer can come out. The teacher can come out. The spiritual leader can come out. We can be the epitome of walking our talk and being as helpful and supportive with others as we am with ourselves. We can call out the dishonesty and lies that we see in the world. And we can say, here's a better way, and show the example of truth, of honesty, of understanding that, we're all on this self-improvement path on planet Earth. Tenth house, transit of Jupiter in Virgo. Here we're going to have Saturn in Sag in the first house, and we're going to have Neptune and Chiron in Pisces in the fourth house for the T-square. What will have a tendency to come up here is work crises, work distortions, dishonesties around our career. And if that's the case, there can be those famous falls from grace. We can have the workaholism here, or we can have the avoidance of work and career here. The distortion can go both ways, too much, too little. There can be resource crises again. We've got another double earth signature, Virgo 10th house. We can have resources substituting for our beliefs. We can have hoarding here. This is the accumulation of resources in the 10th house. So we can, go overboard in that we never have enough money in the bank, or we never have enough material things, or we never have a big enough house, we never have a big enough car, we never have enough of this or that. And, that's covering up that void of honoring self as a resource, trying to the second house. We try to fill up our life with stuff and things rather than having inner values and self-worth. For some, there can be an inability to take charge of our life. Virgo, we're always in a crisis. There's always another thing happening and another thing happening and another thing happening. And, the crises just get more and more and more and more and bigger and bigger and bigger. And because we just don't want to make any effort. And so we excuse make around crises to avoid growing up and maturing and taking charge of our life. We can have control freaks here. This could, and I mean, no judgments to anybody here. I'm just giving examples all across the board from consensus, individuating, and spirituating. But this could be the boss from hell. Jupiter transiting through Virgo in the 10th house, the employees can never do it good enough. This detail, that detail, this detail, that detail. Could do the same thing in the familial environment. The partner's never good enough, the kids are never good enough, it can just be, it can go down that critical path and wanting to just be right, wanting to judge. 10th house is known as conditioned guilt. And the conditioned guilt basically comes from not conforming to whatever consensus society's standards of conduct are, or the bosses, or whoever in relationship with. And so we must be very careful here of, again, excess control to cover up the own lack within us. So we need to be making the effort with our life through this transit in the 10th house. We need to be making the effort in work and career. We need to give others a helping hand up if we have been successful in the resource arena. If we've just been successful in our life in a multitude of ways. The 10th house is, the authority isn't always a bad figure. It can be somebody who teaches as well. It can be somebody who shows others how to do it. It can, again, the helping hand up, the guidance to others. As Jupiter moves through Virgo in this house, we could just intuit better and better ways to parent our children if we are raising kids or we have young adults. Instead of criticizing them and always pointing out their lacks, we can intuit how they desire to mature, and we can be supportive of that. We can be working towards the healthy boundaries in the whole work arena. If we're the workaholic, we learn how to take time for ourselves and our family. If we are on the lazy or excuse-making side, we can make the effort to do what it is we need to do to succeed in our world, to provide for ourselves, to be responsible for ourselves. You know, some of the crazies here could easily be around not wanting to be responsible for self. And there's no more excuses. Just get in and do the work. And let Jupiter and Virgo help you intuit, again, what might be some karma yoga or what might be the best ways to go around it. There just needs to, again, Virgo is always about process. Process, 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 process. And so effort in making that process, effort in going through the process again, until we become self-responsible. There could be really good organizational skills here. And we could utilize Jupiter to help us keep that in balance so we don't go overboard into controlling. That we prioritize what really needs to be done. There could be some good leadership abilities here as well. And we could have leaders who are forgiving and tolerating others. I mean, we're all humans here. There isn't a perfect human on planet Earth. So we could be, understanding, generous, guiding leaders here. Back to that helping others. If we figured it out, how do we serve others and help them figure it out? There could be something in whatever our occupation is. We could put together some skill book, we could put together things that just make it helpful for others trying to do what we have done. The one who doesn't want to make the effort or mature or grow up with application, they could surprise themselves at how good they are at organizing things and taking charge and achieving the goals that they're looking towards. Jupiter and Virgo transiting through the 11th house. Here the T-square is going to come through with Saturn in Sag being in the 2nd and Neptune, Chiron in Pisces being in the 5th house. This one could bring up crisis paralysis. Again, the 11th house is fixed air. And because it rules, it's the house of trauma and PTSD and mental trauma, we could really distort here and get so caught up into crises after crises after crises after crises. This too will fry the nerves and just possibly burn out the nervous system. And in extremes, it could just take us into a nervous breakdown, a mental breakdown. So we can get caught up in circular thinking, stuck in our traumas, reliving them again and again and again and again and again. And what happens then is it can create an inability to act. Again, Jupiter and Virgo is intuiting where to make the best self-improvement efforts. And we could get stuck and not make any effort here. We could also get caught up in, very intense mental self-analyzations. If we're orientated towards trauma, we could take on all the conditioning guilt that it's our fault. It's our fault. Why didn't I do this better? Why did I go to that party? Why did I get in this relationship? Why, we can just really mentally beat ourselves up. And so it can cause us to just be unavailable. Is anybody home? There could be an inability to actually just be in our body and be present. We could have trauma to the point that we are avoiding the details of life. Virgo, we go into overwhelm. There's too many details. There's too much to do. And so, again, catatonia, paralysis. We're just stuck. And then, it's going to take the squares from the 8th house, the confrontations and more shocks, more crises, to try and get us moving again, making the effort. This is another area where, all 12 houses can get caught up in the sadomasochistic distortions, okay? With this signifying shock and trauma house, we can really get caught up into some of those distortions. And sometimes we can go off into the sadomasochistic distortions in an effort to try and feel something. That's just going to indicate how out of touch we are with our body, with being real in our world. So while we have, a good ability to analyze stuff here, we can't just analyze it. We have to act. That 5th house polarity. We have to create. We have to take it from our head to our feet. And so there can be a lot of intuitiveness here. That air nature of the 11th house can bring us the visions. We can understand the depth of trauma with ourselves and with others. And we can address our own ability to help heal ourselves and to help others heal themselves. Instead of staying stuck in the trauma, we can be the PTSD expert at helping others heal. It's going to be important that we have forgiveness with this house transit, because if we're caught up in the trauma, we can get caught up in the victimization, or we can get caught up in the anger. And so we must self-forgive. We must forgive others. I'm thinking of that black church in the southeast. Was it South Carolina, where that famous black church, the white kid came in, sat through the prayer circle, and then proceeded to shoot, 9 black members of the church. And everybody in that church was just coming forth with forgiveness. I think that's the story. Or there was one of the sad gun stories, and the victim's family went for forgiveness of the perpetrator. This becomes important with this house transit in whatever degree we sense we've been hurt. Forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, learning how to be gentle with the traumas of life. It could be easy to fall into the Virgo criticisms and blame? Can we recognize that, 8,000 years of patriarchal distortions, we all have trauma. We all need love. We all need gentleness. We all need forgiveness. So we need to take those mental capacities that can be quite sharp here, quite intuitive, and we need to put that to positive use. Can we envision new healing modalities to help heal traumas? Can we put those sharp mental capacities into helping others understand their traumas and heal those traumas? This house placement, it's quite possible that we could become strong advocates for inequalities in the workplace, for inequalities racially, for inequalities anywhere, for traumas done anywhere. We can go from being paralyzed in doing anything to become forward-thinking leaders, coming up with therapies and tools and exercises and all kinds of ways to help society heal. We can do it personally for ourselves, and we can do it for others, serving others through our depth of understanding trauma and the ability to come up with solutions to it. One more drink here. Jupiter in Virgo, transiting through the 12th house, puts all the signs in the opposite houses of rulership. And it puts Saturn in Sagittarius in the 3rd. And it puts Neptune and Chiron in Pisces in the 6th house. With this house transit, Jupiter and Virgo can become the extremes of victim-victor situations. If we don't have healthy boundaries, we can, just feel like we're always the victim. Or we can go to the anger and just take it out on ourselves and on others. It's possible that with this house transit, we can go out of the body. We aren't in our body. It's too painful to be in my body. So I'm just going to check out. Whether we're floating on top of the ceiling or we choose to go overboard with any substance issues, again, we can just feel too painful to be in our body. We can also have situations where we almost become the Florence Nightingale. We over-sacrifice ourselves for others. Again, this comes when we don't have the healthy boundaries. We can also over-sacrifice ourselves in the arena of work. We can just do for everybody else until we collapse, until we burn out. There can be any number of guilt complexes, natural guilt, conditioned guilt. These can both sometimes have us going overboard due to that sense of guilt. And we have to kind of step back with Jupiter and Virgo and intuit. What am I responsible for and what is not my responsibility? What is it for me to do and what's not here for me to do? There can be avoidance of just taking care of life, taking care of the necessities in our world. Can't make the effort. Too hard to make the effort. Overwhelmed making the effort. We can have loners here. We can have defeatism. What's the use? Never going to be able to do it anyway. Never going to have enough time to get it all done, so why should I try? We can excuse make, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. I think I'll just float for right now. I'm going to have another bag of cookies. I'll start the diet tomorrow. There can be mysterious illnesses. And anytime you have mysterious illnesses, they're always, well, all illness on the broadest level is going to signify disconnect from source energy. And when we run into those mysterious illnesses, it's the divine knocking on our door, calling us, going, wait a minute, you've been avoiding me. You've been pretending I don't exist. You've been pretending that there are no deeper cosmological understandings in the universe here. And they're just catalysts to get our attention, to get us to reconnect with source, to get us on that path to source energy. And so with this transit, when we want to work with Jupiter and Virgo through the 12th house, we can be the gifted healer. Jupiter and Virgo through the 6th, Jupiter and Virgo through the 12th. This can really be the healers of the zodiac, the shamans of the zodiac, the medical intuitives who can understand the deeper connections to the mysterious illnesses. This can be the medical intuitive not only with self but with others as well, helping others understand their imbalances and illnesses and what it is they are needing to do in their lives to reconnect with source and heal self. This is where we really can become the true servant of source energy, serving others, and again, learning how to do it with healthy boundaries, learning and trusting those intuitive hits of when this is our work to do and when this is not our work to do, and how to be of service to anyone who's in sincere need and desire of help. And then, these can be people who are just magically supported by the universe to the degree that they are willing to be helpful to others. This signature here, again, is orientated towards helping and healing others. And there can be such beauty, peace, karma yoga when we make an effort to go in those directions. This is somebody who can be calming down the crises, calming down the sadomasochistic situations. They can be, really working and making that effort to create inner peace in their life, to hold those healthy boundaries, having a healthy sense of self, and knowing how to have that sense of helping others how and when necessary. We can have an intuitive understanding of how to apply the Virgonian effort in life. In other words, they can be examples of spirit walking on planet Earth. All right, there's the 12 houses for all of us, Jupiter and Virgo. Every new day is another chance to change your life. Every new day is a rebirth. Questions, comments from anything that I've said? Hopefully I have sparked your own intuition to help you through your own evolution with Jupiter and Virgo, healing yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Comments or questions from anybody?
Oh, there's several comments on the board, Kim, but thank you for the wonderful presentation. It was confirming for many that participated tonight.
Good. Good, good, good. Well, you will have this to refer to for the next year, and in working with your own clientele, if you work with clients, or working with yourself, or just deepening your chart understanding of friends, lovers, family members. Jupiter and Virgo, how gentle can we be with ourselves? All right, everyone, if there's no other comments or questions, I will let us all go for the evening, and I hope you found this two-part series most helpful. May you go out there and be the best you can be in every way. Adios, everyone. Oh, I did put my nodal axis class up for Virgo Pisces. I haven't quite made up my mind on the chakra series. I'd like to do a 7-class series on the 7 major chakras. And I'm just giving myself a little more time to decide if I want to wait until it's too cold to be outdoors. All right, everyone, thank you very much, and see you next time.